All right, folks, welcome to Read the Line Celebrity Insider Interview for the week of the BMW Championship. And I have none other than staff writer from Golf Digest, Chris Powers, Twitter phenom, and host of the Be Right podcast. Chris, welcome to the show. How are you today, bud?
Awesome, Keith. Thanks for having me. It's hilarious that this is a celebrity insider, but I'll wear that label if you want me to.
Oh man, I would put it right across your "Hello, my name is" badge at any convention. That's for sure, especially one in golf betting, or one for all the Twitter faithful that follow you. If you don't follow Chris on Twitter, I think it's at cpowers14. Get after
Correct.
him because it's just some great commentary. Where's just real quickly, where's the 14 come from?
Just my favorite number growing up. Wore it for football. Ended up wearing 7 in high school because it was half of 14, and I don't know, it just kind of stuck with me. I was a huge Georgia football fan growing up. David Green was an all-time great Georgia quarterback. He wore 14, so just love the number.
Well, we'll be down in Georgia next week, right? Maybe if you pick the
That's right.
winner this week, we'll have you on again. But for now, let's talk BMW Championship. I'm down at Wilmington Country Club here in the tennis or paddle center currently, filming this with you. And first impression of the golf course, when you dug into your research this week for the podcast, for your writing, what'd you think of Wilmington Country Club?
Well, it looks long, looks big, feels majory, feels Patrick Cantley. I know we're not making picks yet, but that's what it kind of feels like to me. I know I've seen some of our Twitter friends hate on Robert Trent Jones, but I don't know. I'm kind of a fan. There's a couple good courses here in New Jersey. I'm playing one today actually. Hominy Hill is one of his better ones. So I'm not sure where all the RTJ hate is coming from. I'm excited to see this course, and I think he's got plenty of really good courses on his resume. So I expect this one to be a good one.
Yeah, I mean, between he and his two sons, I mean, there's just a plethora of courses with which we could all
Mhm.
play, and I'm sure we would enjoy on any given day. Now, you mentioned it. It's a big, long golf course, a lot of bunkering, huge greens. Let's get right into it. When you start to think about the skill set that it's going to take this week, what are you looking at specifically for this 7,500 plus yard par 71 layout?
I think it's a typical, one of his typical courses like a Firestone where it's, long iron play is going to be huge. Obviously, driving it far is going to be huge. That's huge everywhere. Back to bent grass greens this week, so you got to be a good bent grass putter. And yeah, again, approach play. Approach play is big every week. We do all these breakdowns, and ultimately it comes down to, hitting your irons and making a bunch of putts. So, but I do think you got to hit it long and straight, which also, helps everywhere. But I think it'll definitely help this week. And yeah, iron play I think is going to be the big one this week.
A lot of people are making a big deal about the fact that the PGA Tour has never even been to Delaware before, let alone Wilmington Country Club, and that there's no course history to go against, and that the comps are kind of loose because most of them are majors when you start to talk about RTJ and his designs. So, is there something that you tend to lean on as a stat when you start your approach for a week like this when there's so much unknown?
Well, unknown weeks I'm always looking at tee to green. I think that if you're playing well tee to green, you're going to have a chance pretty much every week. So that's usually the first stat I look at. And then, yeah, I'll go look at putting and the grass, whatever the green type is. But I think tee to green is the biggest indicator of, who's going to play well consistently and contend on a weekly basis. So tee to green for me is kind of my favorite stat to jump to when I start my research.
When I begin my approach, I like to start with things like the architecture, the agronomy. We've mentioned a couple of those things already, but we haven't talked about the weather, right? So, have you looked into the weather this week? How do you feel that the golf course is going to play? You're there at Golf Digest. There's a number of people there covering the tournament, people on the grounds here. I've seen them already. You know, Overall, how do you feel like the golf course is going to play? And do you think weather is going to play a factor this weekend?
It looks like the forecast looks perfect, which has kind of been the Northeast these last few weeks. Besides the little heat wave we had, but this past week has been pretty much perfect golf weather. The few courses I've played here in the Northeast recently, the conditions are absolutely immaculate. So I would expect it to be a typical major championship type venue that's going to be immaculate conditions wise. I don't know. You're there. I'm assuming the rough is long and there's plenty of, you said, plenty of bunkers. Not a lot of water hazards. Much different than last week. Obviously, water everywhere. I think there's only 4 water hazards, at Wilmington, so it'll be a little bit different than last week. But yeah, I expect the weather looks great. So scoring, I would imagine 12, 13, 14 under, right in that area.
Well, I'll tell you this much, Chris. I've walked around a little bit here on Tuesday, and I can tell you that you better put your big boy pants on in order to play this
Yeah.
golf course. 7,500 yards plus. The two par fives. I mean, I always, we love to throw out these superlatives all the time, and you say, well, the hole's 649. No one can hit it in two, right? But at the end of the day, someone's going to do it this week. I hope I
Oh
get to
yeah.
see it live because these guys are just unbelievable at it. But you mentioned the four penalty areas where there's water. Not a lot like last week, but where they're placed really could play a huge role in what happens in this tournament. You've got one on one of the par fives where it's going to force you almost to lay up because it's 630 plus yards. You've got one on the ninth, which is almost a 500-yard par four. I think water strategically is going to play a part. I don't think it's going to play a penalty part this week, but I think it's going to play a big strategic role.
Interesting. That's exciting because we all love a good going for the green and two, and water comes into play. So I'm interested to see that for sure. Long par fives, that's going to be fun as well. So not easy birdies, two putt birdies or whatever. You're going to have to fight for your birdies on the par five. So I'm excited to watch.
How about you weighing recent form as we come into this? And we look at the top of the board, it seems like everybody, their odds, first of all, they're under 20 to 1. And it seems like everybody, there's a case for saying that they're playing well. How do you kind of narrow down? I mean, how do you say that Tony Finau's maybe playing better than Will Zalatoris, for example?
Well, I mean, everyone who's here is obviously you had to be playing well pretty recently or earlier in the year, but everyone at the top of the board is in great recent form. Zalatoris, you mentioned Tony Finau. I would argue Patrick Cantlay is not in great form after his finish last week, but I just feel like this is a really good Cantlay course, and he plays well in these FedEx Cup playoffs. I like Cam Young this week too. He didn't, he hit the ball great last week, but couldn't make a putt. But these FedEx Cup playoffs, historically, recent form is kind of the indicator of who's going to win it. And a lot of guys have won two of these events, even the last 2 years when they've only been three events. So you can really get cooking here, and when the fields get smaller, you can win a little bit easier too. So it's tough. It's going to be tough to pick out one of these guys at the top of the board, especially with the odds. I saw one site's odds; everyone's under like 18 to 1. So that's not the most fun week to bet on. But if you pick the right guy, it could definitely be.
It's almost like picking a live event. It's the odds. The odds just aren't in your favor. One
Mhm.
of the things that I'm looking at this week, and you mentioned it briefly right there, but I did a deeper dive, and 11 of the 15 years in which we've had a FedEx Cup playoffs. Now, some have had four, some have had three, but 11 of those 15 years, we've had a multiple tournament winner. I mean, that's over
Mhm.
70% of the time. So, does Willie Z go back to back, or is it going to be more like a Cantley situation where maybe Finau pops this week, or maybe somebody that missed the cut like Rory, who's a good fit for this place, now goes, BMW Tour Championship, FedEx Cup, give me the check, let's go.
Yeah, it's tough because you might think it could be Zalatoris, but he might win the Tour Championship, not this week. But like you said, we could see a Rory rip off two in a row. I wouldn't be surprised if Tony Finau does it. You mentioned that too. So I'm not sure. It's tough to pick the guy who's going to win two. But like you said, 11 of 15. I think it's going to happen again. That's kind of the MO of these FedEx Cup playoffs, especially for with the starting strokes format next week too. If Zalatoris has another good week and he's able to take the lead into next week, that he might rip off all three.
How do you put guys into perspective like Rory or Scotty or even Jordan Spieth that missed the cut last week? They had plenty of time off. They had plenty of time to prepare. Do you think it's rust? I mean, I know that was a hard golf course last week, but how do you then think about them this week? Maybe they're not an outright guy, but maybe they're a placement or a prop guy. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think rust definitely plays a factor. And rust, you don't want to be rusty when you're playing a course like TPC Southwind, obviously with the water everywhere. So I don't know. I don't know how I'm going to weigh that with you want to ride the hot hand in the playoffs, but like you said, this is Rory obviously has a great history on Robert Trent Jones golf courses too. We know he won at Congressional in 2011. He always heats up this time of year, so you got to figure he'll bounce back pretty quickly. Like I said, Cantley, I think he finished like 57th last week, but I would not be surprised to see him there on Sunday. So tough to weigh because there's a lot of hot hands, Tony Finau and Zalatoris. But yeah, Rory is terrifying. John Rahm is terrifying. Obviously, he ended up playing okay on the weekend, I think, last week. So again, this is a tough one to handicap this week.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it for a lot of different factors, and we've covered all of those. So let's try to handicap it the best we could. You know, Rory's one of those guys, one of only two guys that's won two FedEx Cups, the other being Tiger, right? He's at the top of the odds board. But when you look at the chalk, I know we've mentioned a lot of the guys, they have very short odds, but it's half the size of a normal field. It's only 70 guys, and some of the best players in the world, there's no doubt. When you look at the favorites, who do you love this week?
Yeah, I said it. I think it's Cantlay just because it just screams Cantlay to me. He hits it long, hits it straight. You know, great iron player, obviously, and the bent grass putting for me. We saw him kind of put on an incredible putting performance last week at that was Caves Valley in Maryland. So it just feels like a back-to-back Cantlay situation for me here. I would like to go back to Will Zalatoris because I have been talking about this, throughout this FedEx Cup playoffs about the stat you mentioned, 11 to 15 guys winning two events. So it's hard to not go right back to Willie Z. But I think I'm leaning with Patrick Cantlay this week off the poor finish last week. Hopefully people will maybe fade him or go to somewhere else at the top of the board here. Go with Justin Thomas, who I'm not sure how well he's playing right now. So I'm going to go with Patrick Cantlay at 14-1.
Small field, 70 or less players, right? Depending on how many guys show up. I think we're expecting 68 at this point.
Yep.
So when you go middle tier, usually middle is a little higher than this number. But if I got to get somebody in that 30 to 50 range, right? 30 to 60 range, is there a name or two there that pops?
Yeah, I'm on Cam Young this week. I know it sounds like it's a little square. I've seen some people already talking some smack about Cam Young. I don't know. It's like a Zalator situation. I don't want to miss out on the breakthrough, and he's come so close recently. Finally cooled off last week, but again, he hit the ball great, gained a bunch of strokes tee to green, and with his irons, just couldn't make a putt. So hopefully the putts fall this week. I'll go with the tired narrative that maybe Zalatoris, his wake buddy, motivates him to get in that winner circle. So just another guy who you don't want to miss out on that coronation, and it's still a good number. I think it's 28, 25-1. That area you just mentioned. So it's Cameron Young for me in this middle tier.
Well, Chris, I'll say this much. Fools seldom differ. I'm with you this week. I think that we're gonna have a Wake Forest winner, if you know what I mean. All right, so I'm leaning that way so far, hedging my bets here. Yeah,
yeah.
That I definitely that'd be a good name a bet. There's no doubt about
Yeah.
that. One more quick question. Doesn't happen often. Happened a couple years ago with Keegan and Aronimink. We're only about probably 30 miles from there, right? He was a long shot to win. Is it just the Thigala train that we're riding for long shots, or is there somebody else up there that pops?
For me, I think 60-1 would qualify, and that's Adam Scott for me. And if you're looking for a guy who, like an architect player connection, Adam Scott's been unbelievable at Robert Trent Jones golf courses. He's won at Firestone. He's been playing really well as of late. Of course, he contended at Bellerive in 2018, that PGA Championship. People recall he was going toe to toe with Brooks Koepka down the stretch there. A couple top fives at Congressional for when they hosted the AT&T National. Top five at Oak Hill, which I believe is also a Robert Trent Jones. That was at the 2013 PGA. So really good history on Robert Trent Jones golf course. He's been playing really well as of late, tied for fifth last week, as I mentioned. And he's been talking about, hungry for a win after that heartbreak last year at Wyndham in the playoff, and he could have won it in regulation. And hasn't won since Riviera, I believe, in 19 or 20. So it's been a while for Adam Scott. That would fit the mold of a Keegan win, I think. A guy who hasn't won in a while, but is a top tier player. That can win against a field like this. So it's Adam Scott for me at 60-1.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's been a privilege today to have you as my celebrity insider. There's no doubt about it. You bring up Adam Scott, and sometimes I think of Chris Powers. Good-looking guy, great golf game. There's a lot of
That's way too
similarities
high
there.
praise.
Well, that there's no doubt that's true. But I do appreciate the time, my friend. I'm sure we'll talk again soon. And best of luck this week to you and all your bettors and followers.
Thanks, Keith. Appreciate it.